The handcuffs clicked shut around Karen's wrists with a finality that cut through her righteous rage like cold water. She stood there, chest heaving, surveying the damage she'd inflicted on the community pool, while Detective Martinez read her rights in that maddeningly calm voice of his. "This is a mistake," she said, her voice hoarse from screaming. "I'm the president of the Willowbrook HOA. I have authority here. I was enforcing community standards." "You were destroying property with a sledgehammer," Martinez replied, guiding her toward his patrol car. "That's vandalism, disturbing the peace, and potentially assault with a deadly weapon." "Deadly weapon?" Karen's laugh was sharp and bitter. "It's a sledgehammer. I was fixing a problem." As they walked past the pool, Karen couldn't help but notice the crowd had tripled. Mrs. Chen from the end of the street was there, along with the Johnsons, the Patels, and even old Mr. Kowalski, who never left his house. They all watched her perp walk with expressions she'd never seen before. Not the grudging respect she'd grown accustomed to, but something closer to satisfaction. "Looks like your reign of terror is over, Karen," called out Jennifer Rodriguez, the woman who dared to paint her mailbox forest green instead of regulation hunter green. "Maybe now we can actually enjoy living here." "Forest green," Karen shouted over her shoulder. "The approved color is hunter green. It's in the handbook." Detective Martinez opened the patrol car door. "Duck your head," he instructed, but Karen remained rigid. "You people don't understand," she said, her voice carrying despite the handcuffs. "I moved here 15 years ago, when this place was nothing but dirt lots and dreams. I built these standards. I made this community what it is. Without rules, without enforcement, it all falls apart." "Karen," Tom Henderson approached, his daughter now safely with her mother. "We know you care about the neighborhood. But this isn't the way. Isn't it?" Karen's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "When I started as HOA president, property values were stagnant. Crime was creeping in from the city. Now look at us. We're the most desirable subdivision in the county. You think that happened by accident?" Martinez had to admit she had a point. Willowbrook was pristine, safe, and valuable. But he'd also seen the complaint files at the station, noise complaints, harassment allegations, and more than one domestic disturbance that started with an HOA violation notice. "Get in the car, Karen," he said gently. As the patrol car pulled away, Karen pressed her face to the window, watching her neighborhood, her life's work, disappear behind them. The pool area was already swarming with people, kids jumping back into the water, parents laughing and talking. The Hendersons' illegal black ink paperwork was probably still sitting on her desk, waiting for her to return and properly process it. But she wouldn't be returning. Not today, maybe not ever. At the station, Karen sat in the holding cell, her pantsuit wrinkled, her pearl necklace askew. She'd been through processing, fingerprinting, and a very uncomfortable conversation with a public defender who kept using words like temporary insanity and community service. "Mrs. Whitmore," a young officer approached her cell. "Your husband is here to post bail." Karen looked up, surprised. Richard had been traveling for work, wasn't supposed to be back until Monday. How did he? "Ma'am, you're all over social media. #HoKaren is trending on Twitter." Someone live-streamed the whole thing. The weight of that information settled over Karen like a heavy blanket. Not just her neighbors had seen her breakdown. The entire internet had watched her destroy the pool. Her reputation, her authority, her carefully constructed world of rules and regulations had been reduced to a viral video and a hashtag. Richard appeared at the cell door, his face gray with exhaustion and embarrassment. "Karen, what have you done?" She looked at her husband of 23 years, this man who'd supported her HOA ambitions, who'd helped her draft the original community guidelines, who'd stood by her through every contentious board meeting and angry neighbor confrontation. "I protected what we built," she said quietly. "I protected our home." But even as she said it, Karen knew something fundamental had shifted. The sledgehammer had done more than destroy pool tiles. It had shattered something inside her too. The emergency HOA board meeting was held in the community center, and Karen had never seen it so packed. Every seat was filled. People lined the walls, and the overflow crowd spilled into the hallway. She sat at the defendant's table, because that's what it was, really a trial, with her lawyer, watching her neighbors file in with expressions ranging from curious to openly hostile. "This is a witch hunt," Karen muttered, adjusting her blazer. She'd chosen her most authoritative outfit, navy blue suit, flag pin, her hair restored to its perfect bob. If she was going down, she'd go down looking like the leader she'd always been. "Karen," her lawyer whispered, "remember what we discussed. Apologize. Show remorse. They might let you keep your board position if you—" "I'm not apologizing for doing my job." The meeting was called to order by Vice President Harold Winsley, a man Karen had personally recruited to the board 3 years ago. He avoided her eyes as he spoke. "We're here to address the events of last Saturday and determine the appropriate response to President Whitmore's actions." Jennifer Rodriguez stood up, her forest green mailbox violation still fresh in Karen's mind. "I'd like to read a statement on behalf of the Willowbrook Residents Coalition." Karen's stomach dropped. There was a coalition. When had that happened? "For 5 years, we've lived under an increasingly authoritarian regime," Jennifer began, her voice steady and clear. "Property inspections without notice, fines for minor infractions, harassment of families trying to enjoy their own homes. The pool incident wasn't an aberration. It was the inevitable result of unchecked power." The crowd murmured agreement. Karen felt the walls closing in. "That's not true." Karen stood up, ignoring her lawyer's restraining hand. "Every rule I enforced was voted on by this community. Every fine was issued according to established procedures. I didn't create these standards. We all did together." "You created a police state," called out Tom Henderson. "My daughter is afraid to play in our own backyard because she might leave a toy out overnight." "Property values," Karen began, "are meaningless if we can't enjoy our properties," interrupted Mrs. Chen. "My grandson won't visit anymore because you cited us for having a child's bicycle visible from the street." Karen looked around the room, seeing faces she'd known for years, people she'd helped, problems she'd solved. The Hendersons' property line dispute that she'd mediated, Mrs. Chen's successful petition to install speed bumps, the Patels' architectural approval for their beautiful garden gate. "I protected this place," Karen said, her voice breaking slightly. "I kept it safe. I kept it beautiful. I kept it valuable." "You kept it lifeless," Harold Winsley said quietly. "Karen, you did incredible work in the early years. But somewhere along the way, you stopped serving the community and started controlling it." The vote was unanimous. Karen Whitmore was removed from her position as HOA president, effective immediately. She was banned from attending board meetings for 1 year and prohibited from filing violation reports for 6 months. Her sledgehammer rampage would cost her $15,000 in pool repairs and 200 hours of community service. As the meeting disbanded, Karen sat alone at the defendant's table, watching her neighbors file out, many of them talking excitedly about finally getting our community back. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd spent 5 years building a perfect neighborhood, only to discover that nobody wanted to live in perfection. Detective Martinez approached her table. "How are you holding up?" Karen looked up at him, this man who'd arrested her with such professional kindness. "I suppose you think I got what I deserved." "I think you're someone who cared too much and forgot how to stop," Martinez said. "I've seen it before. Good people who get so focused on control that they lose sight of what they're actually protecting." "So what happens now?" Karen asked. "I've lost everything I worked for. My reputation is destroyed. I'm a meme." "Now you figure out who you are when you're not in charge," Martinez said. "Maybe that's not such a bad thing." As Karen gathered her papers and prepared to leave, she noticed a small group of residents clustered around the community bulletin board. They were looking at a sign-up sheet for a new neighborhood watch program, completely voluntary, no fines, no violations, just neighbors looking out for neighbors. For the first time in years, Karen felt something that wasn't anger or frustration. It might have been hope. But as she walked to her car, she couldn't shake the feeling that her story with Willowbrook wasn't over. The sledgehammer incident had changed everything, but change, Karen was beginning to realize, was rarely permanent, especially when you knew where everyone lived. The sledgehammer whistled through the air with surprising grace for something wielded by a woman in a pressed pantsuit and pearls. Karen Whitmore's perfectly manicured hands gripped the handle as she brought it crashing down onto the pristine tile edge of the Willowbrook Community Pool with a satisfying crack that echoed across the entire subdivision. "That's what you get for ignoring HOA regulations," she screamed, her voice carrying across the stunned silence of the dozen families who had been enjoying their Saturday afternoon swim. Water sloshed violently as children scrambled out of the pool, their parents frozen in disbelief. Karen hefted the sledgehammer again, her silver hair coming loose from its perfect bob. Pool parties require 48 hours advance notice. Written notice. In triplicate, another swing, another tile destroyed, and those inflatable flamingos? Section 4.7 clearly states no pool decorations without architectural committee approval. Detective Ray Martinez had been enjoying his day off, sipping a beer on his back patio 3 houses down. When the commotion started, he'd moved to Willowbrook specifically to escape the chaos of his job. But chaos, it seemed, had found him anyway. "Ma'am, I need you to put down the sledgehammer," Martinez called out, approaching slowly with his hands visible. He'd left his service weapon inside, but his training kicked in automatically. Karen whirled around, her eyes blazing with righteous fury. "Detective Martinez, perfect timing. I'm making a citizen's arrest for multiple HOA violations. The Hendersons have been flagrantly disregarding community standards for weeks." "Karen, you can't just." Tom Henderson stepped forward, his 8-year-old daughter clinging to his leg. "We filed the paperwork. It's sitting on your desk right now." "Filed incorrectly," Karen shrieked, raising the sledgehammer again. "Blue ink only. The forms specifically state blue ink, and you use black." Martinez had dealt with domestic disputes, gang violence, and armed robberies, but nothing had prepared him for the particular brand of unhinged determination radiating from Karen Whitmore. She stood there, designer pool cover destroyer in hand, genuinely believing she was saving civilization itself. "Here's what's going to happen," Martinez said calmly. "You're going to put down the sledgehammer, and we're going to have a conversation about property damage and disturbing the peace." "Property damage?" Karen's voice cracked with indignation. "I'm the HOA president. I'm protecting property values. Do you know what happens to neighborhoods when people start thinking they can just do whatever they want?" The sledgehammer trembled in her grip. Around the pool, cell phones emerged, recording every word. Karen's perfect world was crumbling faster than the tiles at her feet, but she wouldn't stop. "Madame," Martinez said again, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "Put it down, now." Karen looked at the destruction she'd caused, then at the faces surrounding her, neighbors she'd spent 5 years trying to control, now staring at her with mixtures of fear and disgust. The sledgehammer suddenly felt impossibly heavy, but instead of dropping it, she took one more swing.